gotten a handful of questions that basically boil down to how do I get my toddler to play independently? Which I totally get. What parent doesn't want a few minutes to themselves? Or on a totally different note, which some of you guys wrote in about, how frustrating is it to buy toys only for your child to not engage with them? Today I'm kind of compiling my answers to all those different people into a simple video for you guys and sharing my top tips to get your 0 to 3-year-old to play independently and actually use the different items you set out for them. If you guys are new here, my name is Rachel. Welcome to my channel. I have been sharing how we realistically Montessori at home. Some of these tips are going to have an overlap with that. Some of these are obviously not going to be totally Montessori. For more disclaimers on my Montessori background and all that, I suggest watching the first video in the Montessori at home series. Tip number 1 is going to be do not interrupt your child, and this starts at birth. Encouraging concentration is one of the easiest things we can do for our kids, but can also feel like the hardest. Typically, as adults, we are very overstimulated ourselves. We're forced to slow down in that 4th trimester, newborn haze. By the time we're moving out of it, we can be getting the itch to go, 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 and do again. And that itch can end up carrying over to our kids. What I encourage you to do is go back to that slowness and stillness of the newborn phase. This could be something as simple as you are going through a picture book with your newborn, maybe. Those high contrast board books that I think a lot of parents end up getting. Don't turn the page until your baby looks away. There's no words on the page, there's no story to rush through, so a lot of us parents are innately doing this, but for some reason, as there start to be words on the page, we start to just turn the page, turn the page, turn the page. One of the ways that we can really encourage that concentration is by just staying on a page, even if it's a storybook, until they look away or until they prompt the page change. So it's little moments like that that can really add up in enhancing your child's concentration and ability to go inside versus looking to you as their plaything. You know, other examples of this, I get a lot of questions about dinner time too. How do we handle dinner time in our house, which I probably should do a different video on. But this idea of not interrupting could be as simple as letting them finish stacking the blocks or doing whatever it is they're doing before asking them to come and sit at the table. It really goes back to Dr. Montessori's quote, play is the work of the child. You wouldn't want to be interrupted in your work. Don't interrupt them in theirs. Or don't be surprised if you are always interrupting them that they start to come to you and interrupt you. I want to say these tips are in no particular order. They're not like steps that you go through. These are just random. Tip number 2 is going to be to model it. If your child is not using a toy you bought or engaging with an activity you set up, the best advice I have is to go ahead and play with it yourself. If you want your child to play independently, then you need to be playing independently in front of them too, especially in those early years. In other words, lead with your hands and not with your mouth. Don't tell them to go play or tell them to go do something. Show them what it looks like when you do it. Kids are absorbing everything at this age. They are not paying attention to what we're saying, but rather what we're doing. Laying out some random objects for them and telling them to pour back and forth probably isn't going to do anything. In my Love Every The Realist play kit review, I said I thought the pouring containers that come in that play kit were kind of a waste because my daughter by that age range had already been pouring back and forth for like 6 months. Somebody recently commented and asked, how did I get her to do that? And the reality is like I didn't intentionally. I realized after she asked the question and when I was reflecting on it was that at bath time or pool time, I would always take a set of nesting cups that had holes in the bottom and just pour water back and forth into them so that she could see the different designs and patterns and flow of the water out the bottom. I never really thought much about the practical life skill. It was just something she picked up because she had always seen me do it. Or you independently engage with a toy or an activity, the more they're going to do it too, or the more that you let them observe you just doing all of the things around the house, the more that that independent play is going to end up generalizing for them as well. So whether that's with a toy or an activity you set up, or more practical life skills like going to the bathroom, personal hygiene, cooking, cleaning, all of those things will end up coming together. Tip Tip number 3 is going to be observe. Dr. Montessori always stressed the importance of a prepared environment, and the way we do this at home is simply by observing our child, taking note of where their natural curiosity is at that time. What are they gravitating towards? What are they staring at? What are they touching or engaging with? And of course, remember, don't interrupt. It doesn't matter if they're using it the right way. They are little scientists experimenting, and they're going to figure it out, or they'll ask you for help in some way, shape, or form when they're ready for your help. How we implement this with a new toy, because that was one of the questions I got, which is how do I introduce the items when we get a new Love Every Play kit? What I personally do whenever we get a Love Every Play kit or a KiwiCo box is I go ahead, I open it myself, I take all of the items out of their packaging, and then I put them all back into the box. My daughter knows exactly what those boxes are. I sit back and observe. I pay attention to which item she touched first. How long did she touch it? What did she go for next? I pretty much just sit back for the next, usually 40 minutes to an hour. She will just go ahead and do different stuff. During that time, if I notice she's really not engaging with a particular item, like she has not touched it, I might start playing with it off to the side on my own. And that's for a couple different reasons. One, just going off of that modeling. 2, because it's something for me to do. And 3, because I want to. I find that me playing with the toys helps me understand them a little bit better. It also makes it so I'm not just like staring at her, which can be kind of weird. Which I guess that's also one of Montessori's observations with kids, which was she would always train her teachers in saying, you want to be watching the children, but you don't really want them to know that you're watching them. We all get self-conscious when somebody's staring at us. I find that if I'm engaging with the toys, it allows her to go deeper into her play with the toys, whatever she's using, or she might come over and inspect what I'm doing as well. And either of those things are fine. We're both playing independently parallel, which is very common, parallel play at 2 years old. That's normal. And this way she's learning how to do it, both by me modeling it and her being able to do it, and I'm not interrupting her. And then from there, I just use mama's intuition. Depending on what I saw her gravitate towards the most is what I will go ahead and put out on her toy shelf for the next week or 2, and then I will start rotating in the other items. And then a little bonus tip for you, if your child is going through a fussy phase or whining or a temper tantrum, is really to go ahead and just observe. Usually they are just trying to communicate something that they don't have the words for yet. For my daughter, most of the time, especially in that 2-year-old stage, it is related to them wanting more independence, not knowing how to ask for it. My daughter started going through a phase where she did not want anyone to put on her pajamas. It wasn't that she was trying to delay bedtime. We weren't in a power struggle. It wasn't any of that. Once I took a step back and observed what she was trying to tell me, I realized it was because she wanted to put her PJs on herself. But she wanted to learn the skill. Sometimes I have to use Mia, which you guys have seen me talk about before, and have Mia help her because she doesn't want mom's help because she wants to do it on her own. And so it's just about meeting your kid where they're at. When is this fussiness coming up more? What am I observing about what I'm doing that seems to be triggering this in her, and how can I adjust that to meet them where they're at? When she was a baby, younger than a year, I would notice, and I've gotten a lot of people that have asked me this too over the last year or so, I would be in the kitchen cooking, she would be on the kitchen floor, but then she would start whining and fussing, and I realized it was because she wanted to see what I was cooking. She wanted to be up in the action, and that's why we chose to get a toddler tower at a younger than recommended age, and I will leave my full how to choose a toddler tower guide in the description box below if you're interested. That was a lifesaver and a game changer for us. Tip number 4 is going to be repeat, reflect, and relax. Kids need repetition at this age. If you want your child to play independently, then you need to play independently, which means putting away your phone and engaging with life around you repeatedly. Going for a walk, preparing meals, cleaning, cooking, reading books. She'll want to have her screen time in the morning sometimes, and I will sit next to her because she'll want me to sit with her, and instead of just watching the TV too, I'm reading my own book. And she's older and can read by herself. She's more likely to do it because she saw me doing it. It doesn't guarantee it, but it lays a stronger foundation for it happening. The big things I will say going off this whole repeat, reflex, relax thing is instead of obsessing about what you can set up or do with your child, start asking yourself what you can set up and do for yourself. If you hate doing crafts, don't do them and don't set them up for your kid. It's a lot easier to create that repetition, to create that generalization of independence when you are doing it with things you enjoy. They will end up feeling that joy too and wanting to create it more and more for themselves. The more you can keep your cup full, the more that overflows for them. Personally, in our house, we have always tried to meditate, work out, and do all of the things. I don't fold laundry while my daughter is napping. I always fold laundry in front of my kid. If I am bringing clothes to her room to put away, I say, hey Reagan, let's go into your room. And she will go, and maybe she's playing, or she recently started to want to help me put her clothes in there. I ask her to be my shadow in those moments. That is how I know I'm going to create an independent child. It's somebody that can play with their own toys, somebody that can take care of their own area of the home, somebody that can contribute to a community, which care of community is another Montessori concept, as well as care of self and some of those others. If your child is mobile or a toddler, I know this can be harder to start implementing than if you had started back when they were a newborn. Definitely lower expectations, which is tip number 5, and we'll get more into. Really set yourself up for success, and that's where I say that reflect is really important. I mean, reflect on like what worked, what didn't work, how could you reduce the obstacle or interruption that you experienced from last time, and you just keep refining that. As they get older, this is a great opportunity to communicate boundaries. My husband and I are talking and my daughter wants us to go into her playroom with her. We'll often say, oh, I'm talking to mommy or daddy right now. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Kids don't totally understand the concept of what 5 minutes is, so you can always get like a sand timer and you can turn it upside down and hand it to them and say, when this runs out, I'm gonna come play with you. And that way there's a visual cue for them. One of those things where you're gonna have to refine it a little bit and you're gonna have to repeat it over and over, and you're gonna have to reflect on what's working, what's not working, and re-implement the modeling and observing tips from earlier. Tip number 5 is to let go of expectations. Every child and parent is going to have a unique attachment. Every situation is going to look different. Letting go of expectations about what independent play looks like for a baby or toddler is key. I get that question a lot. First-time moms who have never been around kids before, and they're like, I just don't know what's normal. And the truth is, there is no normal. If you practice everything I've talked about before in this next part, it will continue to grow and get longer and longer, but you don't do a Montessori 3-hour work period with a 0 to 3-year-old. The reason why the mixed stage class is 3 to 6 is for a reason. It goes back to everything we talked about, and then just meeting your kid where they're at and not having expectations on them or on yourself. What keeps me sane is remembering how hard it is for me to change myself, or how frustrated I get when people try to put me into a box. And that same grace and courtesy should be applied to our kids, I think. It's a lot easier for me to stay positive, keep my cup full. Kids are feeding off of our energy. They're our greatest teachers. If you want to see how your internal world is doing, oftentimes we can look at our kids, because I really believe that they are just so sensitive in outputting the unspoken energies. As I said earlier, most of the time my daughter's fussiness or tantrums is related to her wanting independence. The other % of the time it is related towards her filtering out other people's energies. And I can see this a lot depending on my mood, my husband's mood, who babysitter was that day. Or if you listen to Montessori, she talks a lot about the psychic nature and the spirituality connection with kids. Really look at them as just this mirror into how the world is going on around them. And that's not to shame, beat yourself up, blame, any of that type of stuff whatsoever. It's just about letting go of the expectations you're putting on yourself and unnecessary pressure you're putting on yourself or on them. For me, it's about letting my daughter show me where I can soften, where I can let go, how can I hold life with a looser grasp, releasing control. It's just this beautiful opportunity where the shame and the guilt and comparison, it doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't serve anybody. Just let them be your little baby Yoda and lead scientist of your house, if you will, and trying new ways to show up for both yourself and your kids. Kids are really like the biggest mirror into our internal world. They will show us our blind spots. They will show us where we have to be more gentle, where we have to heal, where we have to grow, remove the ego, remove the storylines, and just ease into it. And when we can do that, I think we'll be surprised at how much more they are able to do independently. Make sure you hit that notification and subscribe button because you don't want to miss more videos in the Montessori at Home series, from Montessori potty training to consequences versus punishment and so much more. In the meantime, make sure to go ahead, check out the past videos in this series and my Love Every Play Kit reviews, which are kind of like all the toys I showed in this video. If you have any questions at all, feel free to drop them in the comments or hit me up on Instagram at the Confused Millennial. Have a good one.